let us not forget everything that happens. It's by the will of Allah. Holy will. It's time to unite and stand, and we will be the best amongst men. It's not time to be extreme or do the unthinkable, but to stand together as one. Tune into Sunnahfollowers, streaming every day, various platforms. Trust me, you'll find a way. Sunnahfollowers.
Her name is mentioned in many books such as Bukhari, Muslim, and even Riyadh Salihin. Before the Prophet met KHADIJAH, this woman was his first love, but refused his hand in marriage. Join Ustada lailanasheeba as she takes us on the journey and teaches us the story of Hani. Ready, Allah. Okay, inshallah, we're ready to begin. Inna alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. And I want to welcome everyone to our series of the Heroines of Islam. And hold on. Do I have any moderators in there? Can y'all please mute whoever is on that microphone? And somebody please keep an eye to make sure these people do not use their phone, especially when I'm doing this lecture. Okay, I want to welcome everybody to our series, The Heroines of Islam. And something that I spoke about earlier today, one of the things that a lot of Muslims today fail to realize, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and also his companions, they were human beings just like you and me. And what does that mean? That means that they had the same feelings, emotions that we experience in our lives. They felt things that we feel. They cried, they laughed. They were not gods. They were not goddesses. They were not these extra superhuman people. The thing that made them different from us is that they just had a strong belief in Allah. They were stronger in their belief in Allah than we are. That's the difference. But they went through ups and downs in their lives just as we do. And the good thing about them is they serve as mentors and role models for us today. All we have to do is learn about them. And by learning about them, we'll find the ability to handle our trials in life. Well, today, I'm going to do the story of one of the heroines of Islam who we hear about all the time. Her name is Hani. Hani. Her name is mentioned in many hadiths. Hani. This name is very, very popular in Islam. When you read most hadith books, you will see her name mentioned. By the way, Hani. Hani is the one with the yellow dress. Remember Hani? Hani is the one that Imam Bukhari put in his collection, that she was wearing a beautiful yellow dress. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told her how beautiful she looked in that yellow dress she had on. You know, again, these hadiths get bypassed, even though they're in the most authentic book after the Quran. The most authentic book after the Quran is Bukhari. That's where you will find all the hadiths about the colors that the female companions used to wear. You will find the hadiths about their makeup that they used to wear, you know, and all of that. But those hadiths get bypassed for some reason. Well, Hani was the one with the beautiful yellow dress. That was her favorite color. Just like Aisha, radiallahu anha, her favorite color was pink and red. Salama's was blue. Zainab's was green. All of that shows that there are no restrictions in Islam as far as what colors. The Prophet's wives, the female companions, they didn't walk around wearing dark colors, as Atiyah tells us in Sahih Bukhari. She said, we females, we never wore dark colors unless someone died. And in that case, we would put on dark colors and we would stop wearing our makeup. We wouldn't apply any makeup until we were done mourning. So that hadith is right there in Bukhari. It gets bypassed too. That's the dalil that women wear makeup. Makeup is not haram, subhanallah. So I'm going to teach you guys today the story of Hani. There's something about Hani that many Muslims in the West, and I'm emphasizing this because the Arabic women know about Hani. Hani is a very favorite companion of many of the Arabic women, because the story of Hani, everybody loves a love story. Hani's story and her relation with the Prophet is something of wonderment, because what few Muslims in the West know, Hani was the first woman, I repeat, the first woman, I repeat, she was the first woman who the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam fell in love with. That's new to many of you. Everybody believes that KHADIJAH radiallahu anha was the first woman he ever loved. That's not true. You think about it. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not even meet or marry KHADIJAH until he was 40 years old. Do you guys think that there were no other women around until he was 40 years? Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Well, let me introduce everyone to Hani. So sit back. This is a wonderful story. You know, a wonderful story of how sometimes we just miss out on things in life. Sometimes things happen and we find ourselves in a situation where, you know, we can't do anything about it. And then sometimes life happens and we just miss out. You know, wow, I should have. How many of us do that? I should have. Man, I should have. Man, I should have. I missed out on that. Well, this is one of those stories, you know, where we miss out. You know, you sit back and say, wow, man, what was wrong with me? I should have, but I didn't. Or, wow, man, I missed out. Our Prophet Muhammad was a human being. You know, he went through that, the miss outs. You know, we sisters, we go through that a lot. Wow, I shouldn't have turned that brother down. Wow, that was a mistake. What-oh, should have had a V8. We all go through that. Well, sit back, because you're going to see that what we go through is nothing new. It's what humans have been going through since Allah created Adam and Eve. So let me put this the things down here so you guys can see. Plus, the people like to take screenshots. And feel free to take a screenshot of the PowerPoint so you can print it out and share this wonderful story with your children, especially your daughters. Okay. So let me make this big screen. Let me start off with the Zoom people first. Oh, yes. And by the way, I didn't. Okay, here I am. I'm going live on Instagram now. There we go. So for those of you on Instagram, inshallah, I should be live now. There. I forgot to push the button. Okay, it's live on Instagram. Okay, let me share Zoom to PowerPoint and share you guys here. Give me a second. I know you got a black screen. Give me a second. Hani. It's one of my favorite stories too. Hani and Atika. Hakam. Those are my favorite, some of my favorite female companions. Okay, hold on here. Okay. That's the PowerPoint. Okay, everybody should be able to see my PowerPoint. I'm getting ready to make it one screened. Put this out the way so I can see. I'm going to move this out the way too. Okay, so tonight, inshallah, we're going to do the story of Hani. Hani, radiallahu anha. Now, for those of us who read the hadith books, such as Bukhari and Muslim, even if you read Imam Nawawi's Riyadh al-Salihin, Hani, that's a name that you will frequently come upon. As for those of you who have never heard her name before, I want you guys to understand she's an amazing woman in the history of Islam. And she is also one of the female companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was extremely beautiful, very beautiful. In fact, she looked just like the Prophet. Why? She happened to be his cousin. Her real name was Fakita, and she was the daughter of Abu Talib. Y'all know who Abu Talib was. Abu Talib was the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the one that looked out for him, even though he did not convert to Islam. Well, she was the older sister. She was Ali, radiallahu anha. She was Ali's older sister and Jafar's older sister. So she was older than Ali, older than Jafar. She was close to the age of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she grew up with him. As a child, after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lost his mother and father, and after his grandfather died, remember Abu Talib took him in, and she was around the same age as the Prophet. So they were kids, they were children, childhood friends who grew up together. They were first cousins, but they were close, like a brother and a sister. And they loved each other. And they grew up in a family of love, subhanallah. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam became very attached to his cousins, all of them, including her. And he had a lot of respect for his uncle. But you know how it is when we're children. When we're children, we're like brother and sister. We can play together and run around together and spar. Back in those days, they would spar, play with swords and bows and arrows and ride horses and camels together. But then as you grow up, things change. You no longer look at a person in the same way as being like a sister or a brother. You will start to see in that girl, wow, she's growing up. She's turning into a woman. And you'll start to see things about her that you like, her honesty, her trustworthiness, her intelligence. And you will look at the boy that you viewed as being like a brother who he used to spar with and ride camels with as, oh, wow, he's grown up into a man. He's handsome. He has a beard and all of that. Well, this is what happened. These two grew up together in the same home. You know, they were first cousins. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, helped his uncle in the home as best he could. He carried out his uncle's business transactions. And Fakita did what young girls do. They help out, helping with the rest of the family too. Well, it just so happened as they grew older, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked at Fakita in a different way. He no longer saw his little playful cousin, but now he saw a beautiful woman transforming before him. She was a woman who was strong. She was a woman that was trustworthy. She was a woman that was extremely intelligent. So he began to have feelings for her, like most men do. And believe it or not, she had feelings for him too. So the young Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gathered up the nerve one day, and he went to his uncle Abu Talib, and he asked permission to marry Fakita. And he just knew his uncle was going to approve of it. But unfortunately, Abu Talib denied it. He said, "I'm sorry, son." He said, "I have already accepted a proposal from Hubayra ibn Abu Wahab, who is a member of the wealthy Makhzum clan." He said, "I accepted that offer for her years ago." Remember, back in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th century, children were married when they were young. In other words, they were promised in marriage, many of them at birth. Well, Abu Talib had promised years ago that his daughter would marry this person. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was kind of shocked. He was also hurt. He said, "Oh, uncle, why have you married her off to Hubayra instead of considering me?" And Abu Talib told him, "Nephew, they are our in-laws. And you have to understand that the noble is only equal for the noble." You guys get what he was saying? You know, there's two different meanings that many of the scholars say that this could mean. This could mean that, number one, Abu Talib owed a favor to that tribe. But most likely, the scholars agree that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by him being an orphan, he had no money, so he was poor. And back then, the poor could only be with the poor, the rich with the rich. They were all about status quo back then in those days. So imagine how heartbroken and hurt the young Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to be. And just to let you guys know, Fakita or Hani, she was heartbroken too, because she secretly wanted to marry her cousin too, because she really liked his honesty and his trustworthiness. So imagine how hurt she was to find out that she had been promised to someone else other than her beloved cousin Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Fakita ended up marrying Hubayra, and they lived in Mecca. Her husband Hubayra, he was a poet, and many people describe him as being wise. He was wise, he was handsome, and he was very influential. He was rich. And he and Fakita had 7 children. They had 3 daughters and 4 sons. Her oldest son was Hani, and that's where she got the nickname Hani from. Okay? So life goes on. She married, moved in with her husband, and she and her husband began their life together. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued his life. But then when the revelation came to him, his uncle Abu Talib supported him and protected him from the Quraysh, but he did not embrace Islam, even though all of Abu Talib's children became Muslim, and so did his wife. Well, Hani, by the way, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam remained very good friends with her because, number one, they were cousins, and also her husband, the man she married, Hubayra, in the beginning, he liked the Prophet Muhammad too. So even though they never married each other, they remained very close friends. And when the Prophet Muhammad married KHADIJAH, guys, remember when I did her story, Hani became one of the best friends of KHADIJAH, radiallahu anha. So Hani and KHADIJAH were very close. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam remained close to her and her husband. When he received the revelation and the call to prophethood, after KHADIJAH converted to Islam, Hani became Muslim too. But her husband did not. But even though her husband did not become Muslim, he did not chastise her for being one. She had a big, beautiful home, and she lived in that house with her husband and children. And the Prophet Muhammad, even when he was being abused by the other Quraysh, her and her husband always welcomed him there. So to see how close they were. They remained close because remember, blood is thicker than water. Hani was still his first cousin. Even though he could not marry her, she remained his closest friend because they grew up together. They were very close in age. So when he was being persecuted, he could always seek refuge in her home. And he would always come to her home and hang out with her husband and her sons and her and seek refuge, because by her husband being rich and wealthy, nobody bothered him. And they would not bother anyone that he protected. Remember, we talked about in Mukhtar's class, protection was everything back in those days. If you wanted the protection of somebody, they would leave you alone when you were around that person. Okay? And after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam married KHADIJAH, they all remained friends. But after the death of KHADIJAH, that's when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through the worst trial of his life. You guys remember we talked about it. This was after the boycott, after the Quraysh had boycotted his whole tribe. When the boycott was lifted, KHADIJAH died. And when she died, within 3 months, Abu Talib died. The Prophet felt alone. He had no friends. He lost his wife, who was his support. He lost his uncle, who was his support. And he went to the town of Taif. This is when he went to Taif. And the people of Taif, they threw rocks at him and ran him away. So he was alone. The only person he could think to seek refuge with was Hani. Because remember, her husband, even though her husband was not Muslim, her husband allowed him to seek protection with them in their home. So after he came back from Taif, after Allah sent the angel of the mountains to ask the Prophet if he wanted Allah to destroy the people of Taif, and the Prophet said, no, let them live. Maybe their children will become Muslim. That's when the Prophet came back to Mecca and he went to the home of Hani. Her and her husband and her children supported him and welcomed him in. Now I'm going to tell you why Hani is such an important figure. How many of you thought that when the prophet came back and when he went on his night journey, he was in his house asleep? Nope, nope, nope. It was the home of Hani. When he came back from Taif, he sought solace with her because she was his family. She was his cousin. And he was protected with her family. So when they welcomed him in and they told him, go, Muhammad, and take some rest in the room, the spare room we had, that's when the most miraculous miracle took place. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam lay in the bed sleeping in Hani's home, that's when the angel Jibril alayhi salam knocked at his bedroom door and came to him and took him on the miraculous journey to Jerusalem, to Palestine, and then to the ascension of the heavens. And by the crack of dawn, he returned to her home. So how many of you knew that it was her house that this occurred at? That morning, when he was returned, the first thing he did was went to Hani. He said, cousin, come here. Fakita, come here. And he told her what happened. She knew that the prophet was an honest man. She knew that he was the best man ever. So she believed him. But she told him, oh, cousin, please. She said, I love you. She said, I love you for the sake of Allah. She said, and then I love you for myself. She said, please do not tell the people of what journey you went on because they won't believe you. She said, and the Quraysh may even hurt you. She said, and I love you and I want no harm to come to you. She begged the prophet. So for those of you who don't know, she was the first person. She was the first person. She was the first person that the prophet told about his night journey. And she believed him. And she feared for his life and begged him in the name of Allah to not tell anyone. And she begged him through her love for her, as a result of her love for him, don't tell anyone. But being a prophet, he felt the need to deliver the message of Allah to the people. He told her, Hani, he said, I cannot hide what the Lord wants me to convey. So he went out the next day, went to the Kaaba and announced to the people of Mecca what happened, this journey he went on. And just like Hani said, the people did not believe him. They even tried to test the validity of his story. They began to ask him questions about the mosque in Palestine, what it looked like. And even though the prophet had never been there, even though the prophet had never seen it, he described the mosque to them in such great detail that it matched exactly what they knew of Masjid al-Aqsa. But still, they refused to believe him. And then you guys know what happened then. It was when Abu Bakr came back that Abu Bakr said, if Muhammad said he went on a journey, he went. And when Abu Bakr believed him, then that's when everybody else fell in. But the thing to note here is he went on that journey from the home of Hani. And when he returned, she was the first one he confided in. And due to her love for him and her love for Allah, she begged him, don't tell these people. So anyway, their relationship continued to be close. And then when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina, Hani did not migrate. Remember, she remained in Mecca with her husband. And this is before Allah sent down the laws. This is before Allah sent down the law. This is before Allah sent down the law, making it forbidden for women to remain with non-Muslim husbands. But being that her husband was kind to her, her husband let her do her thing, and he let her children believe in Allah, she didn't go through any abuse. Okay, she remained in Mecca with her husband and her sons, and she continued to practice Islam, and nobody bothered her. Okay, because her husband was very influential and rich. Years later, after the Muslims grew in number and the Muslims grew in strength in Medina, that's when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam put together his army and decided to enter Mecca to conquer it. But before this happened, guys, Allah has sent down the verses of the Quran saying that Muslim women cannot be with non-Muslim men. Okay? And so this is when Hani's husband left. In fact, during this time, there were two unbelieving men who refused to convert to Islam when the Prophet entered into Mecca. And they ran to Hani's house and begged for her protection. She gave them her protection. But when her brother Ali found out, he came into her house to capture and kill the two men. But Hani grabbed her brother and told him, do not go near them. She said, I have already promised them protection. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was outside her house and he heard the loud voices. So he rushed into her house to see what was going on. And the Prophet sided with her. He said, we give protection to whoever Hani has given protection to. So that's where that hadith came from. Hani gave protection to these two men. And that's when it came down by Allah that any woman who protects a man, the man is protected. And those two men were so moved by the Prophet Muhammad and by Hani that they said, you don't have to protect us, O Prophet. We bear witness that you are the messenger of Allah. And they converted to Islam. So that was Hani that gave the protection to two men. In the meantime, remember, her husband, he was not Muslim. He had refused to convert to Islam. So when he heard that the Prophet was coming there with an army, he left. And in Islam, that's when Allah sent down the laws saying that any woman and any man, any woman married to a non-Muslim, the marriage is null and void. So after the conquest of Mecca, that's when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam again went to Hani. After they gave protection to those two men, the Prophet proposed to her. He said, "Oh Fakita, will you marry me? Will you be my wife now?" But again, this time she refused him. She said, "I can't marry you, cousin, because if I married you, my love for you is great." She said, "But also my love for my children is great." She said, "But my love for you is more than my love for them." She said, "Because not only do I love you as a man," she said, "but I love you as the prophet of Allah. And I feel that I wouldn't be able to do justice with my children." She said, "I feel that I will end up devoting my life to you instead of them." And that's when the Prophet said the following famous hadith. He said, "Oh Quraysh, the Quraysh women, They are the best women of the camels because they are good to their children and they take care of their husband's property. That's where that came from. Because again, he proposed to her because now that she was divorced, he had always loved her. But look at this woman. She said, I love you and I love my children. But my love for you is greater than my love for them because not only do I love you as a man, but I love you as a messenger of Allah. And I wouldn't be able to be just to my kids because I put you before even them. And we're supposed to. As Muslims, our love for the Prophet Muhammad is supposed to supersede even our love for our children. So you can see the faith this girl had, this woman had. Yes, she was in love with him, but she loved him as a prophet more than even a regular man. So after the conquest of Mecca, you guys know what happened. The Quraysh converted to Islam. Hani and her sons migrated to Medina to live. And she lived the rest of her life in this new Islamic state. And she raised her children by herself. But the love story doesn't end. After her children had grown up, she approached the prophet this time. She said, "Oh, Muhammad, my cousin," she said, "my children are grown and I am now ready to marry you." But look at life. The Prophet ﷺ told her, "Oh, Fakida, oh, my cousin, it's too late because Allah just sent a new revelation to me. Allah just sent me a revelation saying that I cannot marry any cousins of mine who did not migrate to Medina before the conquest." Subhanallah. So too late. That's it. Can't marry you. I can't marry anybody who's a cousin of mine who did not migrate before the conquest. So she lost out and he lost out. In Medina, Hani became a staunch supporter for the cause of Islam. She was a source of strength and knowledge. She became one of the first female scholars. She became a transmitter of many hadiths. That is why the name Hani will live on forever in the books of Islamic literature. And just for me to share with you guys, if you were Arabic, as the sisters here tell me that helped me put this together, they said there are many books written about Hani. Of course, they're all in Arabic. She was a very, very great scholar. And she's highly respected in the Arabic world. That's why her name is so common. There's a lot of people that name their children Hani and stuff after her. As far as when she died, her date of death is unknown. But we do know that she outlived her brother Ali. We all know that Ali was killed in 661. She lived longer than Ali, but her exact time of death is unknown. But that's the story of Hani, the first love of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A story that shows just bad timing. First time, her father denied it. Second time, she denied it. Third time, he had no choice but to deny it because Allah made it. Can't marry no woman from your family who did not convert before the conquest. Did not migrate before the conquest. Subhanallah. And just for me to share with everybody, I know some of you are going to ask, Aisha was jealous of Hani too. Let me just put it out there. Yes. Aisha tells us in her own words that there was always a special relationship that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam maintained with Hani. He respected her, he valued her opinion and everything else. And she had a little bit of jealousy for Hani because of that. Aisha tells us she felt a little jealousy for her because she was beautiful. You know, the Prophet admired her. He respected her just like he did Ali. Okay. And he would consult with her about matters and stuff. So she always had a jealousy for Hani. So that's the story of Hani radiyallahu anha. Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments?
Oh, go ahead. It was a beautiful, beautiful story. You know, so beautiful.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite companions too. Her and Atika and Hakam and Kala. Those are my favorite companions. Yeah. All right, guys, since there's no other questions or comments, I'm going to close out for tonight. Inshallah, I'll have the schedule posted for tomorrow, but I know the videos. A lot of you asked me about yesterday's lectures. I did edit them. I'm getting ready to upload Dr. Ali's now. So the lecture from Dr. Jamali and Dr. Ali, I will be uploading it in a few minutes. I did the video. I just didn't get a chance to upload. So I'll upload it in a few minutes, okay? All right. So feel free to join us in the Zoom room. Also, let me remind everybody, don't forget that at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Brother Malik is back and he'll be continuing with the Arabic. I think he did a review today of the alphabet. So for those of you who are trying to learn how to read the Quran, make sure you join the 5 o'clock class with Brother Malik tomorrow, because he's reviewing the alphabet and stuff like that. All right. Okay. And please donate to support this dawah effort. You know, we're always in need of donations. If you want to continue to learn Islam and its truthfulness, please support us. Unfiltered. Most of y'all never heard about Hani. The only people that know the story of Hani are Arabs. I hate to say that, but the only person that know about her and the Prophet are the Arabs, because the Western world, they don't tell y'all this stuff. And like the sister Wafaz said, there's a lot of books written in Arabic about Hani. Hani is everybody's favorite in the Arabic world. The females, the girls grow up learning about her. She's everybody's favorite, but those books are in Arabic, not in English. Okay? So, of course, y'all had never heard of it. You ain't going to hear a lot of stuff. You don't live in Arabia. All right. I'm closing out. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.